Spoiler alert. You're listening to the Comics Online Podcast. Season 19. Episode 5. 1982. Broadcast live from FXBG Public Radio June 17, 2019. This episode, Kevin and Troy David time travel to 1982 to chronicle the best of that year's pop culture. Topics include comics, music, movies, TV, and games. Will the Time Lords make it back to the present day? Will they even make it to 1983? Set a course for SETI Alpha 4 at maximum warp as we traverse the 1980s for everything geek pop culture.
Converting earthly language into thrust. As you kneel before Isaiah, Legend of Zelda's turn to dust. Podcasting from the future like your time was dead and gone. And we rock the best site like comicsonline.com. Level 12 cybernetics, vibranium power acts. You communicate with snail mail while we wireless adapt. We are more than ECI as we descend to blow your spot. You're a copy of better tech like your name was GoBots. You hoping for iTunes, but little noob, you in the danger zone. We're all the best leaders like Serpentor on his throne. Written by Stan the Man, don't you ever try to serve thee. New got of this book like we were drawn by Jack Kirby. Hunger like Sinistar, consumer culture than Galactus. Final Fantasy domination with our super geeky tactics. From the days of Marconi to Buff and Loud Investment City. You can hear us on every radio, stolen at Vice City. From leaping tall buildings to going off like gamma bombs. Switch your internet browser to comicsonline.com.
Hello again, and welcome to the Comics Online Podcast, Season 19, Episode 5. I'm your host, Kevin Swann, and with me today, as usual, is my co-host, Troy David Phillips, who you may recognize from the show we do every week. We do the Flashback Top 5 at his comic book store, Flashback Comics in Woodbridge, Virginia, where Troy is the manager, is the guru, is the encyclopedia Troytanica of all things comics. And if this is the first time you're listening to the Comics Online Podcast, we're sorry. But also you're welcome, because if you love comics, Troy is the place to be, and here we are. And obviously it's not just listened to anymore. Those of you who are on Facebook Live, or you're on Instagram, hello Instagram, or you're on YouTube. Hello to all of you as well. In video form, we've got the video version of the podcast.
So, yeah, excellent. Hey, what's up there, Mike Smith? I see some of our friends are joining us here. I'd posted a notice earlier that we were going to have some podcasting shenanigans tonight.
We are.
And so we last week we covered 1982. We actually did a wrap up.
1981.
I'm sorry, 1981. Did a quick wrap up on the comic side of things, and so now we're going to move into 1982. We actually tried to have a little bit of a structure this time out. So
structure is for suckers like us.
Well, suck it up, Buttercup, and let's go into
1982 in film, Troy.
1982 in cinema.
In the cinema. Troy, in 1982 there were a heck of a lot of things, but we might as well start at the top. What was the top of all films in 1982? It was that little pesky guy with the finger and he turned on his heart light. You remember that guy?
Beastmaster?
No, that was Mark Singer. I'm talking about the little scary puppet.
Yes,
that waddled around. I'm talking about E.T. the Extraterrestrial. Oh look, there he is.
Yeah,
up there. As you know, driven on a bike by Elliot across an enormous moon.
And that image, so iconic, would go on later to actually be a corporate symbol.
Yeah, for Spielberg's whole joint.
Yeah.
There. Also, in 1982, I didn't realize before that 1982 was such a big genre movie thing, but boy was I wrong.
Well, yeah, and consider too that 1982 we had films like Gandhi.
Right.
You know,
Huge.
which was huge. You know, like Oscar awards, please. I'll just take all of those.
Take all of them.
Yeah, thank you. Just sweep that into the bag there. Thank you.
Yeah.
I mean, there were a lot of
Back
really
up
good
the truck
films.
to the Academy Awards ceremony and just run away with them all.
But there might not have been necessarily films like that guys like you and I were interested in. I mean,
Right.
you know, Gandhi.
And luckily the Golden Globes saw that and said, you know what, Gandhi, you're great, but E.T. is our jam.
Yeah. So I went and saw E.T., but I also saw, what's next on our docket there, Kevin?
Well, there's a lot. Now, you mentioned Beastmaster with
Yes.
Mark Singer, and we can throw a little video, a little image of that up there. Beastmaster, that was...
Born with the courage of an eagle, the strength of a black tiger, and the power of a god, the epic adventure, a new kind of hero. And I got to say, Beastmaster was one of two films that probably taught a generation of 15, 16-year-old boys to
How to master
twirl a
beasts.
sword around.
Oh, wait, what?
Yeah, so like we were all grabbing, you know, sticks and
Grabbing our
brooms
sticks and master
and doing
beasting.
whatever. So there were some of us though that
I know.
had been in karate classes and you know might have had access
Don't
to
do that
wooden
in karate
swords.
classes.
No, not that you. Now remember, you're on the Facebook side too. You're on the Flashback
Oh.
Facebook side.
Hi, Nicolette. Hi, Mike Smith.
Yes, so keep it clean. But yeah, that was an excellent fantasy film, even if it wasn't actually an excellent film.
It was bad, but it was good. I mean, we loved it at the time, that's for sure. Also that year, in the sword and sorcery genre, we had the original Conan the Barbarian, starring the Governator, Arnold Schwarzenegger, also James Earl Jones, aka the voice of Darth Vader.
Also Mako, also Sandal Bergman in the role of Valeria.
Hey, Troy,
Yes,
what is best in life?
to crush your enemies, to see them driven before you, and to hear the lamentations of the women.
Why do you have to hear the lamentations? That's just mean, Troy. It's 1982. Do we have to? Oh wait. It's later than that.
This is the Hyborian age. This
it
is
sure
Robert
is.
E. Howard's signature character.
And now Conan is with us in the Avengers of all things.
Of all things.
And weirdly fitting in well. I don't. I mean, it's Savage Avengers. He was in regular Avengers for a bit, and now he's in Savage Avengers.
So Conan the Barbarian, the film, obviously 1982, but Conan himself is a significantly older character. The novels had been with us for so long. Robert E. Howard had done other characters, and certainly this film would kick off a little mini franchise.
Yeah.
Dino De Laurentiis, and we'll talk about those other films as we get into the 1980s. But Sandal Bergman herself, little bit of an action queen. She was in other 1980s films, and believe me, anytime she turns up, I'm going to point her out because I had a little mini celebrity crush on Sandal Bergman.
all right. Well, I have to say, first of all, sorry to Bill Waters. I'm sorry I didn't lead with this, but Blade Runner. Mm-hmm. Blade Runner. An amazing, way ahead of its time film. They just killed it to begin with, and then subsequent cuts were also fascinating and amazing.
This entire film could be a podcast for Kevin and I all by itself. There's so many different versions.
Yeah.
I own one of the anniversary box sets. It's got 5 different versions in that box set. I am a big fan of any of the versions where Harrison Ford actually does the vocal narrations, the voiceover.
Yes.
I know that Ridley Scott doesn't like those, and I have to disagree with director Ridley Scott on this. His particular cut, which I have watched more than once, I find that I do not like his interpretation of the story as much as I enjoy the other cuts, both the the European release, the American theatrical release, etc. So that said, it's a great film. I very much enjoyed seeing it. I was surprised to learn that it was not commercially successful in its original run, that it became commercially successful on the video market, because I thought it was such a strong entry, such a strong film. And certainly Harrison Ford just continued to springboard into box office gold. But yeah, that was what it was. Yeah, Blade Runner. I had not actually read the book, Do Androids Dream of Electric Sheep, at that time. I didn't read that book until much later.
Nor had I.
But there were a lot of Philip K. Dick books, PKD, as his fans know him. PKD had written a lot of books that were turned into film treatments. We Can Remember It For You Wholesale becomes Total Recall, and so on. There were others.
Continuing on,
Yeah.
Troy. Continuing on with the most amazing movies of 1982, I think we need to hit Star Trek II: The Wrath of Khan.
And that brings us to the SETI Alpha 4 reference.
Yeah.
And there it is. This is SETI Alpha 4. SETI Alpha 5 exploded, creating problems. So, yeah, everything about this film, a departure from the Star Trek The Motion Picture, and I'm going to say in a lot of very good ways. This film did not attempt to be as cerebral, and as a consequence, it wasn't as slow-moving. Its plot pace was significantly faster. And there were many high points in the film, certainly. It's iconic, and many fans regard it as the best of the original series Star Trek films, although I also hold Undiscovered Country high in my heart.
Really?
Yeah, I actually like that one.
I like 4 is probably my favorite, and then 2.
I like 4. I don't like 4 as much as 2, but I do like 4. And I am not a fan of The Final Frontier.
No,
Not a big fan at all.
I can understand that.
But yes.
All right. So beyond that, also in the what do we have some more sci-fi? Oh yes, we have Tron.
Oh my God.
The original Tron, and obviously with Jeff Bridges, and also Bruce Boxleitner serving this one up as well. Tron opened my imagination as a kid. Here I was. How old were we at this time in 1982?
Well, 1982 for me, I was 16.
Right. So then I was 9.
You poor thing.
I was not. Hey, listen. At 16, you couldn't be bothered to get the toys for Tron, and let me tell you, the light cycles were fun.
But you know what I did
The
do?
ripcord.
I played the Tron video game in the arcades.
Me
because
too.
if my memory serves me correctly, now you'll fact check me on this, but if my memory serves me, the video game arcade version was released just slightly before the actual theatrical film.
Yeah. Yeah, and it was a fantastic game. It was kind of 5 games in one. You played the 4 different things in order to go and level up to the next one.
Yeah.
Yeah, fantastic. Let's see. Where are we at, Troy? We've got also, okay, so in the, also in the sci-fi genre, a little appreciated film known as Time Rider, The Adventures of Lyle Swann, or The Adventure of Lyle Swann. Amazing.
So, funny thing, I have never actually seen, Kevin and I were just talking, I have never actually seen this film. I've just sort of overlooked it. And I think now Kevin and I are going to have to sit down one evening at the Swanky Chez Go Swan, and we're going to have to watch this.
Oh, I will buy this on Blu-ray if I can go and get this on Amazon right now, because, oh my God, this was so good. To me as a kid, and I know I've seen it in, more contemporary times, but, to my recollection, it still held up. Anyway, and there goes...
There goes Instagram.
There goes Instagram. Sorry, Instagram.
Kevin just brought Instagram. He brought all of Instagram
Brought
down.
it down.
The whole thing. Boom.
Also, we had other things such as in the horror genre.
We have a couple of good entries in the horror genre.
Yeah, we have Poltergeist as the big horror one for the year.
Oh yeah. Well, I mean, you just had to start there, right? Oh, that wasn't the
Also
right
that one.
Also, Creepshow.
Also Creepshow.
Yeah.
Creepshow is the anthology one by what do you call was Stephen King, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
So we'll jump over to Poltergeist here, which is probably the better film overall.
Oh yeah.
And
I saw it so many times on
Oh my
HBO
God.
or whatever.
I went with a big group of friends the very first time in its first theatrical release. I've
Got
seen
people
it
starting
on,
to talk.
Yep. I've seen it on cable a couple, 2-3 times. I don't actually own a copy myself now, but every so often I'm like, oh yeah, that scene when that thing happened. Yeah, it takes me back.
Speaking of The Thing, Troy, John Carpenter's The Thing from Another
Thing
World.
from Another World, a
remake,
a reimagining.
Yeah.
It is a remake of the 1950s film, but the creature itself is just so completely redesigned. You can just call it a complete reimagining of the original 1950. God, I think it was 1955 or 1956.
Something like that. And they're not incompatible. Like they could exist in the same universe. There's just this thing is so much more advanced than the blobby thing that we saw back in 1950 whatever.
Well, that was I believe that was James Arness as the creature. It was very humanoid and almost Frankensteinish in its. But there was no shape changing or anything. I mean, just this was so much more creative in its special effects, but it had access to those special effects at the time.
Mike Smith says Airplane 2 would have been Shatner's best film of '82 if not for that con thing. Thanks, Mike. I think we're both gonna agree with that. Airplane 2, of course, as I said last week, Airplane was
y'all
fantastic.
Just slow your rolls. We're getting there.
We are getting there.
So The Thing, John Carpenter and Kurt Russell, and oh my goodness, I'm blanking. I'm like leaning forward trying to see. Like there's a laundry list of acting talent in that one. Yeah. But yeah, so Thing from Another World. You definitely want to put that on your list of things.
Definitely.
Oh
yeah, we're not seeing any additional starring Kurt Russell. Everybody else, we're not telling you about them.
Yeah. No, you're good.
But it's music by Morricone. Morricone. Anyway, we also have.
You might as well go ahead and go to Swampy.
Oh, Swamp Thing. Yeah. All right. So not only The Thing, but Swamp Thing.
Swamp Thing, 1982, ladies and gentlemen. Dick DeRock in the title role, and Adrienne Barbeau is the leading woman.
Right.
Oh my God, such a crush on Adrienne Barbeau.
Our scream queen from that one. Now, Swamp Thing, the following movie. In my opinion, Troy doesn't agree. Had an even better leading lady, but we'll get to that.
I'm not saying Heather Locklear isn't fantastic, but if I had my choices, I would let Adrienne Barbeau lead me astray first.
You'd let her lead you around in a swamp?
Yeah.
Right.
I'm getting mud in my boots, and I'm not even really caring.
Right.
It's that muck is squishing between my toes, and I'm just letting it happen. Let's go.
All right.
So yeah, and obviously that would tie to now at this point, Alan Moore hasn't transformed the comic yet, but it's about to happen. So big things in the works for Swampy.
So our friends on Facebook are throwing out other things as well, like Halloween 3 and what's the other 3?
Friday the 13th.
Friday the 13th Part 3, both out in 1982. Halloween 3 doesn't really belong in the Halloween franchise.
It really does not. Season of the Witch.
It was an accident.
Nothing at all to do with the story of Michael Myers.
No, nothing at all. Anyway, and then of course we all and let me say that this is not genre at all, but I have to shout out one of my favorite franchises, Grease 2. Grease 2 also came out.
Well, we're going to mention that a little more with the music too.
Oh my gosh, are we?
Yeah.
Oh, nice. So talking music before we close out the movies. Let's say first an animated one with fantastic music, The Last Unicorn.
Yeah. You got that? Yep, there it is.
There we go. So it's a Rankin and Bass jam. Fantastic voice acting and just an awesome story. Just one that really can be watched over and over.
And of course, Rankin and Bass had given us previously The Hobbit and The Lord of the Rings, and would eventually give us Return of the King. I think a little bit later, maybe this year or the next year. But
thereabouts.
Yeah, thereabouts.
And then moving on into
as we close, we're going to segue here because you also put 1982 That guy right there.
Yeah,
remember
Pink Floyd,
The Wall, the album and the film. Now, of course, the album had already been out, but there it is, Pink Floyd The Wall, starring Bob Geldof in the role of Pinky, the character that represents, the character that represents Roger Waters, but Bob Geldof himself, a talented vocalist from a band known as the Boomtown Rats.
Yeah.
Bob Geldof would later go on to make a name for himself as a musical humanitarian because he was one of the main driving forces behind Live Aid.
Yeah.
But that comes a little later in time.
A little later, but hey, so you thought you'd like to go to the show, Troy?
Yes, to feel the warm thrill of confusion that Space Cadet glow.
Beautiful. So, Troy, that's the end of my movies for now. Obviously, there were more than just these.
Well, there certainly were.
We said Dark Crystal, didn't we? Did I even grab a Dark Crystal? I didn't grab one, but I meant to. Let's just say I meant to.
Yeah.
And Dark Crystal's coming back.
The Dark Crystal, yes, indeed. People are still buying that Marvel movie super special of the Dark Crystal. I come across them out of collections at the store, and Dark Crystal, you have number 1. Do you have number 2? Do you have number 3? I'm like, oh wow. Well, wait a minute. I seem to only have number 1, but they picked that up. Well, gee, Kevin.
Yes.
Wasn't tomorrow wonderful?
Tomorrow was wonderful.
Those were the words that accompanied the title album, and that was by the Waitresses. 1982, the Waitresses. Wasn't tomorrow wonderful?
I think we're going to have to grab some
and
clips.
That gave me I Know What Boys Like.
Oh, really?
So here's a remastered. Yep, I Know What Boys Like. Wasn't tomorrow wonderful? It's My Car, Christmas wrapping. There were a bunch of songs on that. You know what else was in 1982 was Huey Lewis and the News with the album Picture This.
So,
and hang on a second. Let's give EK. There it is. Let's picture that.
So picture this, Troy. What were the singles off of that? Because I'm not remembering.
If This Is It.
Oh,
was on that one. Now, of course, for me, the signature Huey Lewis album would be in another year, and that another year or two, I think that would be Sports.
Yeah.
I Want a New Drug, and so on and so on.
I could sing you the entire album from start to finish.
I'm sure you could.
This one, I'm like, wait, what's on it again?
So, also in 1982, now, I didn't discover the album until a little bit later, but Men Without Hats gave us Rhythm of Youth. And the most interesting anecdote about Rhythm of Youth is that I always misspelt the word rhythm. There is our lead singer. He was the only member of the band available to do the promotional music video. So while they did this Ren Fair-esque music video, no one else in the band was there.
Wait,
so
which one was this?
The Safety Dance.
And he was the only member of the band?
He was the only member of the band in the actual video.
I just figured some of those other rando people were
They were
band
rando
members.
People from somewhere else. They were not members of the band.
They just found a Ren Fair in, where are they from? Or are they?
Canadian.
Canadian, all right.
So, our neighbors from the north. Men Without Hats, Rhythm of Youth also gave us the single I Like off of this same album. But I recommend the songs Ideas for Walls and Living in China. And don't forget the Great Ones Remember. The song was Great Ones Remember Part 1 and Great Ones Remember Reprise. That whole album is actually quite good.
I thought Men Without Hats were Australian. Because when you sing, you're not necessarily singing your accent, and so I thought they were Australian. So they're Canadian. I'm going to have to sit and marinate on that for a little bit.
Australian would take us to In Excess. The 1982 album was Shabu Shaba. Shabu Shaba was actually the third of the NXS albums. The first two, the title album, the eponymous NXS, and the second album, Decadence, released in their native Australia. But there are the guys, in no particular order because I always get them backwards, but Michael Hutchence is our lead singer, the Ferris brothers, the three Ferris brothers, Kirk Pengilly, and Gary Beers. And that was In Excess, and this was I won't call it a chart-topping album, but it definitely established them as a powerhouse in American album-oriented rock radio.
Randy's telling me that's men at work.
Now, along with In Excess, I'm going to jump over to...
Same smell. Same smell, Randy.
We mentioned films earlier. 1982, we had the film Death Wish 2. Death Wish 2, and I can't remember if I grabbed an album for this, an image for this, I might not have. But Death Wish 2 had the soundtrack mastered by Jimmy Page, formerly of Led Zeppelin. Now, previously, 1980, we had the demise of John Bonham. Well, Jimmy Page went on to doing some solo work, and John Paul Jones got into music production and did some solo stuff. And the title, the first album released by Robert Plant, the lead singer of Led Zeppelin, was, in fact, Pictures at 11. And I did grab an image of that one. So there is, that's Led Zeppelin's Coda. We're going to come back to that one.
Okay.
Robert Plant or Pictures at 11. It's in there, trust me. There it is, Pictures at 11. And as you see on that album there, Robert Plant's image hanging on the wall is on fire. The first song on the album was in fact titled Burning Down One Side. And there it is. There's Robert Plant, Burning Down One Side. This album is also full of very good songs. Robert Plant found a partnership musically with guitarist Robbie Blunt. It's an excellent album. And since EK jumped us to it already, let's go ahead and do the closeout Led Zeppelin, which was their album Coda. Now, this is from the inside where there were lots of images of the band, the four members of the band with John Bonham in life. This has the long drum solo Bonzo's Montreux. And it also has Wearin' and Tearin'. It has, Hey, Hey, What Can I Do? Traveling Riverside Blues is the song I'm trying to think of.
Yeah.
Traveling Riverside Blues. That song is fantastic.
Yep.
Lot of good stuff on Coda. Coda is not well regarded amongst Led Zeppelin fans. It's sort of the album of outtakes and cast-offs because the last album John Bonham could perform on, obviously, was In Through the Outdoor. But I hold Coda in good regards. It's not my favorite album, but it's not the album I hate the most either. And talking about albums that you don't hate the most, how about Fleetwood Mac, Mirage? Remember that one?
All right.
And there it is. The follow-up to their album Tusk, which was an excellent album, chock full of excellent songs, but it did not perform well commercially. It was, of course, a double album, and it was a little pricier. And there were other challenges. But Stevie Nicks, Lindsey Buckingham, Christy McVie, Mick Fleetwood, etc., the band all collaborating, and there's Mirage. That had, again, just sort of continuing with the Fleetwood Mac great goodness. And I don't want to skip over Sparks. I don't want to skip over Sparks with their album Angst in the Pants. Many people will remember, or many, but not necessarily that many. This album has the title song, Angst in the Pants. It also has a song, I Predict. It also has a song, Monster of Love. If you're a fan of the Nicolas Cage, Deborah Foreman film Valley Girl, Eaten by the Monster of Love is in the soundtrack of that movie. So Angst in the Pants was the follow-up album to Womp That Sucker, and I very much like the band Sparks. They're kind of quirky, they're kind of odd, two brothers, and musically, it's definitely worth checking out. 1982 gave us The Clash, amongst other things. Combat Rock. Combat Rock was a sort of a sound experiment. Bear in mind that with the members of the band, with Mick Jones and Joe Strummer, etc., there were tensions within the band, and there were the members kind of pulling apart from each other musically, looking at going in different directions, and eventually the Clash would split up, and out of that we would get, not least of which was Big Audio Dynamite. So Combat Rock, though, had Rock the Casbah and Should I Stay or Should I Go as the two big songs on that, and that was reasons to love that. There were plenty of there's so many other things there. You can't just start throwing up my albums there. Let's see what we got. So, oh yes, Eye in the Sky, Alan Parsons' project. Apparently, Bill Willingham was also a fan of that album. He used song references from Eye in the Sky in later years in the Elementals comic.
Oh yeah.
He was also a fan of Shriekback, a band that I was a very big fan of. And what else we got? Oh, Billy Idol, also known as Billy Idol, that gave us White Wedding Part 1 and White Wedding Part 2. The biggest differences were different remix and instrument focus between the one and the other. One was definitely more played on the radio more frequently.
What else we got?
We got Culture Club, Kissin' to Be Clever. And that had, among other things, I'll Tumble For You.
Oh, so Troy, so one day I'm driving in, yeah, well, I'm not driving. My father's driving because I'm 9.
He was an early start.
I might have been 10, but anyway, by the time this happened, I'm I'm riding in my dad's truck in Tierra Santa, San Diego. And he said, say, Kev, I thought that I might get us some new tapes. What about Culture Club? That's something that we would both like, right? Like, yesterday was Father's Day, everyone. So, Dad, no. I mean, eventually you're like, oh, it's one of those cutesy bands from, obviously, they're talented musicians, but what they put out is just like, oh, it's so cloyingly yuck. Anyway, thanks, Dad, for the laugh. And, yeah, Troy.
Yeah. So, we've got, what else we got there, EK?
I've got some.
Hey. Missing Persons. Now, that is lead singer Dale Bozzio from Missing Persons. This was Spring Session M, which, amongst other things, gave us Walking in L.A., Words, and Destination Unknown.
It looks like she just stepped right out of Blade Runner there. Just perfect outfit for the year, right?
Previously to this band, she had worked at one of the Playboy clubs. I don't recall which one, but the album Spring Session M is itself an anagram. It is the band's name, Missing Persons, in an anagram. That's
Nice.
why it's called Spring Session M.
That's cute.
Yeah, I thought so. Also, I know I put in there Prince, 1999. 2000 Party Over. Oops, out of time.
Out of time, Enos.
Oh, wait, no, not yet. We're not out of time yet.
Enos, we got you.
Yep, we're right there, dude, right there. So,
And
Prince.
Randy says Scorpions Blackout, Van Halen Diver Down, Kiss Creatures of the Night. Oh, those are like not quite before they really started hitting, but yeah, early stuff from some great bands.
Well, yeah, Diver Down, certainly Van Halen was on a climb there. I think also I had in there Duran Duran, their second
Rio.
album, Rio. Yes,
So
there it
many
is.
hits off of this
yeah,
one, though.
look at that Nagel
Way
print.
different here. We had Rio, we had Hungry Like the Wolf, we had Save a Prayer. Oh my gosh. What do we have? New Religion, My Own Way. Anyway, it was that was where they really started hitting it big.
Oh, yeah.
Speaking of Rio,
There we go. From the video, Duran Duran, Rio. Also, 1982, it was The Cars, Shake It Up. Peter Gabriel, Security. Actually, the album doesn't properly have a name. It's called Security, but the first 4 Peter Gabriel albums don't have titles. There's the windshield with the rain. There's the melting face. There's the scratching nails. There's this one, which has the song I Have the Touch, but the song that it's better known for is Shock the Monkey. And the album was called Security for whatever reason. The record label forced Peter Gabriel to give his 5th album an actual title so he could stop calling them Peter Gabriel.
so Troy and EK for that matter, I won't hold you back, but I'm waiting for your love here. Rosanna.
Yeah.
Africa.
Toto 4.
Do we have Toto 4 in this list?
I believe there it is.
There we go.
Yep.
Listen, Toto 4 is fantastic.
The
obviously.
rains down in Africa, but Rosanna, oh my goodness. I'm like, that was a dance staple in my sophomore year. That song came on and we danced. We danced badly, but we danced all the same.
Listen, I remember being in...
You can dance if you want to.
We already did that album.
That was a different album. But all of these songs, this is like when I started calling into the all
Radio
request
station
radio.
for requests, yeah.
And so these were the songs, Duran Duran and Men Without Hats and Toto, and I would ask for, I would like this.
And I had already been doing that. Same thing Kevin was talking about, calling into radio stations. I had already been doing that for the previous 3 years. But, yeah. So 1982, obviously up there, we have Flock of Seagulls. So you're probably noticing a common pattern here. Flock of Seagulls, Men Without Hats, Modern English, After the Snow is also in here. In Excess, and all the other albums that I've named. Notice how strong the new wave music movement is at this point now. And
we're leaving stuff out, clearly.
Yeah. Steve Miller Band had the album Abracadabra, with a very strong new wave component was Abracadabra. The new wave movement was dominating a lot. Thanks to MTV, new wave bands, new wave acts were being heard. They were being seen and heard. They were being called in at the radio. Their albums and singles were selling. Bands like Steve Miller were reinventing their sound, and you would see some of that permeating other bands as well. I do want to mention, because after that, right there, Queen, ladies and gentlemen.
Did I miss that, Troy?
You might have.
My goodness.
You might have. So, Queen was a band that always just, kept strong, kind of changing their sound a little bit, but sticking to a core of things that this was the album with Under Pressure. The actual Under Pressure, not Vanilla Ice. That's we're going to talk about that later, but we're not going to talk about it very much.
Well, because one goes dun 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 dun, and the other goes dun 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 dun. It's totally different.
Totally different. The hook is totally different. So I think I'm gonna let Queen have it there for music because Kevin is going to take us to the boob tube for 1982 in television.
Well, Troy, I thought you'd never... Oh, wait, that's not what you're talking about at all.
No, Sling TV.
Oh, sorry, maybe I should button up for the flashback watchers here.
Yes, indeed.
Watching us live on...
Don't scare my people.
I've already scared them enough. 1982 had some good brand new things. Two of them were two of my favorites. One being Voyagers with an exclamation point.
Yeah,
Voyagers was some time travelers. Phineas Bogg grabbed a hold of Jeffrey Jones with a handheld time travel device known as the Omni, right? And that's what you see behind there. And he dialed in a time, and hopefully they would get there. It wasn't a very predictable thing. They only bopped around for one season.
And not even a whole season at that.
What was it? How many? We had 20 episodes.
Okay.
We had 20. No, the other one that what I'm gonna talk about next in genre television. It got slammed real fast. Voyagers was amazing. Very sad behind the scenes, says Mike Smith. I don't remember why. But another one. Hey, true story. I don't remember why.
It was just the way you delivered it.
So beyond Voyagers, I don't think I have an image for this, but the other one is The Phoenix, from 1982, and it was amazing. Starred Judson Scott. You will remember Judson Scott, also from 1982. He was Khan's number one, right-hand man. in
Joaquin.
But he would go on eventually to hit all the Star Trek franchises. He was in V. He was in X-Files.
Do you remember V, The Visitors?
Yeah. He was in A-Team. He was in Babylon 5 even. Last thing that I recall was Charmed. And that was like 15 years ago or something like that. That he was in the original Charmed. Got a bug. But it was an amazing story about an alien who came down, and it was one of these things where how there are those things that are like ancient aliens built the pyramids and all this sort of thing.
Right.
Well, it totally went into that, and he's one of those aliens.
Oh, okay.
It was fun, and it had such a strong start. It was amazing that what was it? ABC failed to continue it, but
well, whatevs.
yeah, there was something. There was some in my recollection. There was a like a fake. Oh, that guy died, but then he obviously
one of those media hoaxes.
Media hoaxes. Exactly.
We didn't have the internet at the time, but
we only got the original 90-minute premiere. Plus 4 other episodes ever, and there were 4 more that were written, but were never filmed or anything. But anyway, beyond that, in 1982, the new things we got were the Incredible Hulk, and you might think, wait, 1982 was when the Incredible Hulk left. I'm talking about the cartoon.
Yeah, that was NBC, right?
Yeah.
Was it? Yeah, NBC had the Incredible Hulk, and we would also be enjoying. Lord, Alvin and the Chipmunks, Spider-Man and His Amazing Friends. That's
when Spider-Man ended, and then jumped into Spider-Man and His Amazing Friends.
We had Mr. T then too, didn't we?
We did. And another thing that made the jump when the live action show got canceled, but then they were like, no, we must have more, and went into animation was Mork and Mindy.
Oh yeah,
do you remember that?
I do actually.
It was like a bunch of things all in one show where it was like, you got Mork and Mindy, you have the Fonz, you have this.
Remember we had Happy Days in Space?
Oh my God.
That was also thankfully short-lived, but
Happy Days in Space, and
Gilligan's Island, Gilligan's Planet,
Gilligan's Planet, yeah, exactly.
Oh my God, yeah. And so with syndication and reruns and whatnot, some of these cartoons, like in my mind, I'm remembering cartoons not in the proper year because one of the channel affiliates would pull it back out, as a mid-season replacement maybe, or run it through the summer, and so I have them overlapped in my head.
Yeah. So in March of 1982, the crime drama spoof Police Squad debuted, and it only ran for 6 episodes. I thought I remembered it being longer than that.
Well, remember too, though, it turned into the Naked Gun from the files of Police Squad.
Yep.
So yeah, and that. Yeah, we all remember those.
Also in 1982, Jermaine Jackson guest features as Tootie gets to meet the person she admires on a very special episode of The Facts of Life. Years later, Tootie guest starred as the person that I wanted to meet in a very special episode of Kevin Goes to Six Flags with a church youth group. that was a few years later, though. But she and I was like, oh my gosh, Tootie is so amazing. And then the dude who was like grossly over hairy for his age was like hitting on it. It was a great story. Never mind. The important thing is Saturday morning cartoons, Troy.
Yeah.
Tell me more.
So once again, every tail end of the summer, all 3 channels would have these.
Gary Coleman Show.
Yeah, they'd give us
Meatballs and Spaghetti, Pandemonium.
These half-page and full-page ads, in our Marvel and DC comics, and we would see the channel lineups, old favorites coming back.
On ABC, we had the Little Rascals and that Mork and Mindy, Laverne and Shirley Fonz Hour.
Yeah,
we had Pac-Man the cartoon, the Scooby-Doo and Scrappy-Doo Puppy Hour.
Remember was it Black Star?
Black Star, exactly. Oh yeah, Black Star as well.
Yeah, yeah.
We had the premiere of Knight Rider. We had the premiere of Silver Spoons, which everybody wanted to be, Ricky Schroeder because oh my God, that kid had all the friggin' toys.
So unfortunately for the rest of us, only Kevin could actually be that kid in real life.
What? No, we did not have money like that. We didn't have, none
You
of
had
that.
more?
No, are you kidding me? And this ended, in 1982 also ended Bosom Buddies, which, that was a hell of a show. It was fun.
Well, we saw the end of Barney Miller. We saw the end of the Incredible Hulk, WKRP in Cincinnati. Texas. Oh my God.
You remember that? Yeah.
Yeah, vaguely. I don't remember its ending there, but I guess that's where it ended.
And big miniseries, of course, The Elephant Man.
Ah.
You remember that?
I do, actually. Not as well as the feature film, but yeah.
All those crazy elephant bones.
So, excuse me. 1982 in...
Troy, if I had $1 million,
what would you do with it?
I'd buy The Elephant Man's remains.
1982 now takes us out of television and into one of the staple elements of our childhood, which was comics. There's a lot going on in comics because at this point in time, even as some things like, for example, Harvey Comics, after 41 years of publishing, Harvey Comics closes its doors and ends its title line, which had included Hot Stuff and Wendy the Good Witch and Casper the Friendly Ghost and Richie Rich, Little Lot, etc. So Harvey isn't with us anymore. Also, we see the end of the Charlton Bullseye. And it was only 10 issues was the Charlton Bullseye. On the cover there, you could see the character Thunder Bunny. But Thunder Bunny would be picked up in an independent comic that would come along a couple of years later. And the characters from the Charlton Bullseye, the Blue Beetle, the Question, Captain Atom, Charlton characters would be picked up by DC Comics even after Charlton closed its doors down. There were there were new beginnings to come out of these endings, certainly, and I'm skipping through my notes here. So while on the one hand, we see the end of Harvey, we see the end of Charlton, we pick up, actually, the Epic line. Epic Magazine spawns Marvel's Epic creator-owned line, and Marvel at the same time also kicks into the original graphic novel line, the first of which was The Death of Captain Marvel. Now, the graphic novel line enabled these stories to be marketed and this is the second one, Elric the Dreaming City. The graphic novels could be marketed at bookstores, and they could have full-on mature content. They didn't have to go through the comic code for approval, and the writer-artist team could tell longer, more full-length stories. The third in this series was actually Dreadstar. Now, there's the Death of Captain Marvel up there now.
There we go.
And this, in fact, is where Mar-Vell, the Kree captain, dies of cancer. He has one last epic confrontation with Thanos, who is already in the realm of death. And Mar-Vell goes off quietly to enjoy an afterlife with everybody else standing behind, with tears in their eyes. And some interesting points in this story. One, this helped cement Jim Starlin as the quote-unquote hero killer. Hero killer Jim Starlin, because Mar-Vell died, and he killed Adam Warlock already. And whenever a feature character falls under Jim Starlin's pen, they're not long for the world. This is what people said, mostly with respect and some good-natured picking, but they weren't far from wrong, because characters died with Jim Starlin.
That's true. Speaking of Jim Starlin, we have that Marvel graphic novel number 3, Dreadstar.
We do. So now there is Metamorphosis Odyssey had previously appeared in Epic Magazine in serialized installments, and then there was a graphic novel earlier, the previous year, called The Price. That was actually, however, published by Eclipse, and then Jim Starlin brought it back to Marvel with Dreadstar. So The Price introduced us to Syzygy Darklock. He will be the character with the skull face that you see. And Dreadstar would go on in serialized comic form following the original graphic novel. Also, graphic novel number 4 would give us the New Mutants. This would be the second appearance of Shan Koi Man, aka Karma, while it would be the first appearance of Wolfsbane, Danny Moonstar as Psyche, Roberto DaCosta as Sunspot, and Sam Guthrie as Cannonball. Professor Xavier has put these 5 students together to be students, not to be professional adventurers, to be students, and their adventures would be very scaled down at first, but it would allow for Chris Claremont to tell some coming-of-age stories, some teen angsty drama stories that he could no longer tell with the majority of the X-Men. Wolverine, Storm, Colossus, Nightcrawler, those characters were past that angsty point, with only Kitty Pryde as the voice of the youngster.
Yep.
We not only have the graphic novels, but so let's take a look at January 1982. DC Comics Presents issue number 41 is a spotlight. Now, DC Comics, of course, DC Comics Presents is it's a joint title. It's Superman, a team-up title, Superman and some other character. And here we have the Joker. But inside the extra pages, we get the 16-page preview of the new Wonder Woman. What's new about Wonder Woman? Well, her outfit and kind of her return to central greatness. They're trying to really invigorate her title. She had split features at that point. In any event, that was DC Presents. Also, DC gave us the anniversary issue, or the big signature issue, House of Mystery, issue number 300. That was a big double-sized book. Yeah, bear in mind now, 1982, these cover prices, they're 60 cents. And House of Mystery is one of the horror books that is hanging on. DC had previously, this year, they had canceled 3. I know Tales of the Unexpected was one of their anthology books, and they had canceled 2 others. The titles are slipping my mind right now, but...
Nice Kaluta cover there with
yes.
Kane and a bunch of kids.
Well, and because in 1981 we had that Doorway to Mystery, Mike Kaluta cover with Madame Xanadu. Mm-hmm. Now we also have in February we have Flash number 306. The most important thing about Flash 306 is the addition of the backup feature. The backup feature now is Dr. Fate. And so this is where that character will appear for several issues before he's taken out of the back and put somewhere else. Dr. Fate you would also be able to see in the pages of All-Star Squadron. We would get, in the month of March, we would get from DC, Justice League of America, JLA, issue number 200. And a nice big wrapper. Look at the beauty that is that George nice Perez cover. Right. And we see the team kind of torn apart there. It was a big storyline, and look at that talent. You got Jim Aparo, Terry Austin, Brian Boland, Brett Breeding, Pat Broderick, Jerry Conway, George Perez, obviously, Dick Giordano, Carmen Infantino, Gil Kane, Joe Kubert, giants in that book.
And that's why it was $1.50.
Yeah, exactly.
You got people to pay.
The 60-cent cover price, when you double size the book, well, that takes you to $1.50. It should only be $1.20, but nobody was charging $1.20. I'm jumping around a little bit here. I want to talk about New Teen Titans number 21, and the reason I want to mention New Teen Titans 21 is because it premieres an important character. There we have the Night Force preview pull out, but in the pages of this story, we would get a character called the Monitor. Now, the Monitor, of course, would be important to Wolfman and Perez's Crisis on Infinite Earths. Although the series wasn't initially known as Crisis on Infinite Earths, it was known as DC Universe, A Crisis on Infinite Earths. And that character, the Monitor, had first appeared here and would appear in the background in other DC titles until what Wolfman and Perez were brewing